Hello, everyone. Welcome to this webinar on food to go. Now, it's going to be slightly different. It's not done live. I've recorded most of this. So first of all, we're going to have the presentation looking at the food to go, the marketplace, and what actually is food to go. And then we're going to have 3 interviews by people who are directly involved in the market, who are either consultants working in it, advising in it, or we have one company which has been very successful over the last few years in developing not even so much a niche, but developing a very strong foothold in the local market here in Northern Ireland. So the food to go, let's look at a quick definition of what falls into the market of food to go. It really is defined as products that are ordered or bought at a counter and delivered at a minimum cost. So food to go is really something that you can buy that is already prepared, that you don't need to add anything to it. You can just eat it while you move, or you can buy it to consume later. So it is food to go. It's not being consumed on site. It's not something that you're going to have to cook or do anything else to. You can just buy it and either reheat it. I think in a lot of the cases you'll reheat them, and some you don't even have to reheat. You will just eat them as you find them. And I mean, as it says, it's in a single portion. It's very designed to be portable and very convenient. Convenient is very much the key driver in this marketplace. It doesn't require to be cooked, reheated, or assembled. It is basically you buy it and then you can consume it. So that's a very clear definition of what food to go is. This is an example of some of the food to go offerings that are available in the area that I live in. And you see on the top corner here, the Karri Kitchen. Why is food to go becoming so popular? Well, really, it's because of all of our lifestyles. We no longer have time to prepare food, or we're no longer willing to prepare food for ourselves that we will need in our busy lifestyle. So we want something that we can just grab and go. And really, it's all about the time being a scarce resource and how we can use it. And this image just below my picture here, it shows you a wonderful example of a very healthy option that I've seen recently. And this has exploded onto the marketplace. So where years ago people just wanted a convenient snack, now they want a healthy convenient snack. Availability, as we said, is the key driver. It has to be available. It has to be it may be an impulse purchase. So you'll see it certainly within the marketplaces here in Ireland, that it is positioned close to the counter within the supermarket, close to the counter within the garage forecourt, somewhere where people will almost stumble upon it. You don't have to go looking for it. It really is about speed, that they can come in, see the product thereafter, and move forward. It really has seen an explosion over the last 10 years in its presence, taking up a lot of shelf space in that sort of area up close to the counter or the shelves leading to the pay points. Healthy options has seen growth. Originally, the sandwiches were probably one of the first sort of food to go areas that really came onto the marketplace. I'm old enough to remember possibly 20, 25 years ago, a local company moving into this. And I thought, I was skeptical at the start. I didn't think it would be that lucrative a marketplace within what I know. So prepared sandwiches have been with us now for 20 years plus, and that was the basis of this food to go craze, this food to go phenomenon that has now grown to an exceptional size. And again, these products that we'll be showing an example of are sort of healthy options, which again is a key sector within this, a key subsector. So it's a wide range of food. And what we've seen years ago, you may have seen small companies moving into this marketplace. Now you see some of the big players coming in on board, and they're looking at where the growth is, and they're looking at how they can capture this market, because it is also a lucrative market. It has a high price point, although that's coming under pressure over recent years, and certainly with over recent times where people are seeing the cost of living issues rising, that the prices are moving down. But a lot of people coming into this marketplace, and we'll discuss this in a couple of slides time, but they're trading down, as it's known. So where they used to go out to a restaurant, they'll decide not to do that. Next thing would have been they'd have bought the food in, cooked. Now they're moving down from that, so they'll buy food that is already cooked, and they just need to reheat. And you see Marks and Spencer's here has been a great exponent for this over the last few years, where they have the evening meal deal where you get a starter or a main and a dessert and even a bottle of wine. And they did this for under £10, with 12, 13 euros. And you can see it's now £12, and they'll probably come under pressure to increase that because of the recent costs increases. So let's look at the current market position. So I'll just go back to this. This information is from the Lumina Intelligence Food to Go market report of 2022, and it has used mostly UK, almost exclusively UK information. So I apologise for that, but it gives you an indication of where the market is, the size, and the movement of it, and the trends, and all will be exactly the same within the European market. Again, in time of economic difficulty, people are trading down. They still want the convenience. They still have the problems with their busy lifestyles, and they don't want to cook food or stand cook a lot of meals. So they either want to buy out, go out to a restaurant, buy hot food, or they'll buy food to go. So that they're trading in these areas. So it's still, as you said, it's a term that is used within the marketplace as trading down, which people are doing. So they're coming into this marketplace by trading down from other areas like the restaurant business. Now, there's a lot of information here, but I'll try and go through it quickly. So there is growing areas that people can now capture. I mean, it's a lot of people coming into this marketplace, as I said, they're trading down into it, but also because of convenience, because of our lifestyles, it is increasing. And as it's the price point or the percentage point that they've made here is that eating food to go or eating food to go products is still at least half the price that you would if you're buying your food in, whether it's from a hot food bar or going to a restaurant, which is probably more expensive, obviously, than that. So it's still cost-effective way, and it still provides that convenience that people are craving. So the key findings: consumer demand for healthier and international products. So they don't want just what they've at all the time. They want to have new ideas. They want to see products coming in from all different parts of the world. You see that with a rise, certainly in our local market, of Asian products. A lot of that can be seen and has a perception of being more healthy as well. So that combines the two. The price increases have gone up 5.5% to £4.12. It's just €5, just over €5.5. Again, I would imagine that's going to come under pressure to increase because of the recent cost increases. The other key point is new product development. People like new ideas. They like to see new products coming on board. They want something to stimulate their taste buds. They want something to capture their interest. Also, the other point is the more aligned to health values. So they want healthy options. Healthy options is a key subsector of this. You can see it on the shelves as you go by. You'll be fool not to notice this trend without even a market report like this. So it's moving now. Do you have calorie counts? And it's trying to promote and reinforce that some of these products are healthy options, and there are a healthier option than buying a chocolate bar, which is, chocolate, it's still a huge marketplace. Chocolate and confectionery is still a huge marketplace, but they're trying to move into that. They're trying to see some of these food to go products as a replacement to confectionery. So one of the difficulties is the new mandatory calorie labeling, which will be more difficult for people to be able to analyze that at the onset. But again, it's going to become obligatory, I would imagine, and you're going to have your products with the calorie counts and calorie information on the packaging. Check out the new recently released information on packaging, which is on the AHFES training site. Look at the latest modules that are in Program 5, has a lot of information on this, which you may find interesting if that's the area that you're currently exploring. So again, why do food to go? Why is it growing? I was out and about. It's part of my routine. Again, it's about convenience. It's about being able to eat food just as you move. You don't have to prepare it the night before. You've got a busy lifestyle. You just want to nip into the shop and grab something. You may not even want to move into a hot food bar, and you can see these are images of people just eating on the street. Well, you maybe wouldn't have seen it as much years ago, and you can see it on the other one where people are walking. This is you walking straight into the shop, and you almost trip over the food to go offerings. Again, this is key because what we're seeing here is that the total market for the UK is 21.3 billion, but out of that, the supermarkets, if you combine the retail food to go and the travel food to go, them two boxes, you can see that they account for 58%. So that's two-thirds, almost two-thirds of the spend in food to go is from retail and retail type outlets. So companies that we would be working with, the small food manufacturers, this is great news for you because this is the marketplace you're moving into. The food to go isn't so much the traditional hot food bar or the restaurants. That's only a third of the marketplace. The other two-thirds is food to go products, which suits the sort of clientele that we're dealing with within this project. So if 60% of it, that's a huge part of that the marketplace. So what are the drivers? New product development is seen as one of the key drivers. People trading into the marketplace, coming across from spending more expensive, whether it's restaurants or hot food bars, they're coming across and just buying food to go products to reheat later at home. The healthier options, again, this is also driving the marketplace. The difficulties is a mandatory calorie count was adding expense for companies moving into this. The slow response to the changes in the consumer tastes. If you're taking some of the salts and the sugars and the different things out of it, if you're trying to make it more healthy, then it obviously is going to taste and it's going to impact on the flavor profile of the product. And that's just there's no escaping that. If you want to produce a healthier product, you're going to have to find healthy ways of producing it, and that will mean you're removing the salt and the sugar, which have been one of some of the key ingredients for the taste profiles in a lot of products. So another key point of analysis on this is when people are buying this food to go, and you can see it's broken down at the bottom there. The all day is the key point, the key component. It's 64%. But if you look at the subsectors of that, lunch 19%, just a snack 15%, and breakfast 2%. Now I'd have thought breakfast would have been bigger personally, but it's the research has shown that breakfast is only 2% of the overall market. But the all-day items make up almost 64% of the products that are coming into this sector, and a lot of the companies are trying to they're going to use that information to try and produce products that aren't seen or aren't specifically identified as either breakfast, lunch, or anything that's something that you can just eat at any time. So it's just a bit of information of how the market is evolving. Vegan and healthy trends dominate new products. Again, the flexitarianism, the people who are trying to move away from red meat or meat consumption altogether. They're trying to reduce the amount of meat that they're consuming. And they're trying to look at more vegetables and more healthy options. So these are the products that they're moving to. 50% of new drinks feature no added sugar. Again, this is that drive for healthier options. And you can get a sort of premium price at the moment for them. Majority of new drinks within the food to go are priced at over £4, again €5, and that's good for a drink. That really is good for those sorts of drinks. So looking at the profile of the food to go consumers, and it's pointing towards the younger, female, and affluent people with a bit of disposable income, or people who's prepared to use their income in these areas as opposed to staying at home and sort of making their packed lunches they would have a few generations ago. That doesn't really seem to work these days with the younger generation. They go to work, they go out, and they just source the food on the go. They don't stand and prepare it. I have young children at home here at working age, and they don't prepare food. So yeah, that's the key driver. Again, they're the key consumer of these products. 18 to 44s. Again, 44s is probably on the upper end that I would have thought of. But this is the people. So they like to be trendy. They like to see new things. They like to have their taste buds, excited. They want to see something new. They're adventurous. So it is an evolving and highly fluid marketplace. So looking at when they're saying here within the market that it's a higher consumer spend at breakfast occasions. Again, positioning, whether it's a convenience or whether it's an impulse purchase. The food they reckon will be more sheltered from consumer budgetary constraints because it's more habitual in its nature. They can't break the habit. They can't quite get around to making their packed lunch the night before. It's just easier to buy it on the hoof. So that's what it is. These are the people we're dealing with. And if you have that understanding, then you know possibly then the sort of products they'd be excited by. So value is still a key driver in this. It's a bit of a contradiction because one part's saying that they're quite happy to buy it, but they're still a wee bit conscious of price. They're not complete fools. So 26% value for money is still a driver for 26% of the consumer choice. So yeah, value is never out of fashion, is it? So we're going to conclude by looking at the megatrends, and again, convenience, customization, experimental, healthier eating, indulgence, quality-led, sustainability, and value scrutiny. Now, I know there's probably contradictions within that, but again, is it a growing area? There's a wide range of products, and it is a very diverse marketplace. And so certainly within that diverse offering, you'll find all those different things. You'll find indulgence, you'll find healthy, you'll find price points on the lower end, and some price points that'll probably make your eyes water, all within that. So it is, a very mixed bag within this food to go sector. But so now we're going to move to the interviews, and we're going to speak to the people who work in this marketplace day and daily. And hopefully they will be able to feed our knowledge that wee bit more, and we'll be able to get a more fuller picture of what's happening within the food to go marketplace. Good morning. It's nice and sunny here in Northern Ireland, so I hope it's sunny where you are.
Yeah, it is. Thank you very much for the invite, Harry. It's great to be here talking today. And yeah, a little bit of sunshine as well helps everything.
First, I'd like to start off with talking about the food to go sector and its growth over the last sort of 5 years, and maybe even over since lockdown, which has seemed to even made it grow even quicker.
Probably in particular, if we focus on that time kind of since lockdown, and then I guess consider those two distinct aspects of food to go. So from the one side, for food to go specialists, it's throwing up all kinds of challenges. The core customer base hasn't been there, and actually it's created real struggles for many businesses. That said, I guess we've seen the entrepreneurial spirit amongst many of those businesses come through, and we're seeing many of them come back now with refined and developed propositions. And I think the example of Pret-a-Manger and how they're diversifying now as you come out of that is a really interesting one. On the other side of things, I think from a retailer perspective, clearly the sales haven't been there during lockdown, but if anything, the ambitions around food to go on the part of leading food retailers across Europe has actually grown significantly over the past couple of years. So whilst the temporary sales growth hasn't been there, the longer term progression, the longer term ambition has grown significantly.
So you see the evolution of this is now to the point where it's a pre-prepared meal. And do you think this is driven by the retailers in response, or do you think they're leading the way? In other words, they're wanting to be innovative to try and create a new marketplace, or is it in response to consumer demand?
I'd say it's a mix of many different factors, And I think from the food industry perspective, probably we're quite guilty of traditionally seeing the market as one, food retail, and two, food service. But actually, from a consumer perspective, that's not how they see it. They see it in terms of what can I get for lunch? What can I get for dinner? What can I get from a snack and from where? So thinking about it in terms of the missions that you're trying to meet, I think is a really important way of seeing that market opportunity as a whole. And I think kind of within that, we've seen, I guess, a whole raft of different influences coming through when we look at how that market has developed. Go back 30 years or whatever it is, and that kind of triangular sandwich in Marks and Spencer's in the UK is probably something which kicked quite a lot of things off. But then we've seen kind of huge evolution since then. I think the growth of food halls has been a really important, I guess, driver of a lot of innovation in that sector. Because for me, certainly, I look at food halls, I look at the type of concepts that are there, and I relate that very much to a supermarket, a food retail environment, and think, well, actually, if you can do it in that space, why not lift it and put it into that supermarket space? And for sure, in Ireland, that's very much the case. And it's somewhere where I love bringing groups on safaris, just because there's so much innovation there, and you see retailers really thinking around how they can meet that food to go opportunity. And whilst there's some great stuff going on in bigger stores, in the likes of SuperValu and Dunnes stores, actually there's some brilliant stuff in smaller stores as well. So I think kind of absolutely you see that coming through. And then it's around how do you shape that proposition to be relevant, not just in city centre locations, but also, as you say, Harry, in terms of some of those neighbourhood, some of those more rural environments as well.
But I see evidence of
smaller companies coming through in this sector as opposed to it being dominated by the big multinationals like Nestle and people like that who obviously would have the ability to swamp the market with very cost-effective products?
So I'd certainly agree there's some great opportunities for smaller manufacturers, smaller suppliers in this space right now. And as you said, Harry, it is around that speed of thinking, that innovation, and that different thinking that I think we've seen come through, to be honest, in spades over the past decade, really, whether it be from suppliers or from actually food to go specialists, so setting up their own kind of shops or restaurants and just trying to build their own business that way. So there's some hugely exciting stuff going on already, and I think there's a great opportunity for smaller suppliers. But I think it's kind of thinking around who is your target retail customer going to be, who is the end consumer, what need are you meeting, and I guess what mission does that fit into as well.
Would you say the sales are still being driven in traditional ways? In other words, you're getting a listing in a supermarket or a local store, you're getting positioned within the fridge or on the shelves and shifting product that way, as opposed to social media sales. Now, some of the companies there are doing direct delivery.
I suppose, like you, Harry, I've seen some of that activity underway, and to be honest, I think it's worked really well for some people. It's not an area that is kind of that well covered in terms of market studies as a whole. And I suppose probably if I were running a business like that, I'd be kind of thinking around, so what is the next step? How can I work with different partners to spread my reach, whether it's through different delivery partners, whether it's production partners, if you're looking to increase that capacity and are simply doing it from your kitchen, or whether it's through working with different operators or different retailers, whether they be big, small, and specialist, premium or value. Probably it's worth taking a step back when it comes to food to go, because food to go, the number of SKUs, the number of products in a store is always going to be limited. That's the nature of the beast. You don't have entire large supermarkets dedicated to food to go. So that makes that step to get a listing, certainly at a national level, actually quite hard, particularly for a smaller supplier. I think, therefore, there is an element around really understanding that potential kind of retail customer base, thinking about what's the right channel for your business, and I guess being aware of some of those supplier development programs. I mean, I know SuperValu do a lot in that space in Ireland, but I'm sure many others do as well.
Yeah, if you understand what they're trying to achieve, it's easier for you to answer their problems as opposed to just going along and saying, here, I have a solution. They say, that's a wonderful solution, but I don't have that problem. But could you answer this? Could you address this problem? I have a specific problem in this area. And if you could tweak your products that could answer that for me.
I think another really important point around that is once you get the listing, that's kind of where the hard work starts.
Oh, so, yes, yeah, because I mean, it's getting it up. I mean, it's funny you should mention that. That's my next target, to be looking at how then companies drive the products through the business. Because just getting this and it's just day one, really. The problem is getting it off the shelf, and the modern way of thinking is that social media is going to cure all, but social media won't cure all. We still have to do the traditional in-store promotions.
And for me, I think kind of engaging those teams at a store level is really important, because if you can get the guys in store really backing what you're doing, then you've got a great platform.
But one thing then, just to move on, is just as you're moving off topic again slightly, your food safaris. And I mentioned, I looked on your website there, and you flagged up Ireland and the specialty stores within it. How do you see, and when you're going around doing the studies in the various cities, the growth of specialty stores?
And when you say speciality stores, are you talking kind of more premium type operators?
Premium and artisan sort of products that you may find that you wouldn't, the sort of products you wouldn't find in your traditional stores. So if we have companies who work within this project, who are providing a product and they don't have a listing, so it's not available in your mainstream.
I'd say sometimes it's also beyond the cities as well, because I think there's one thing in England, for example, you actually see quite a lot of farm shops. Whilst you might think that they're just a part of a shed that's kind of siphoned off to sell a few products. Actually, a lot of them are very sophisticated operations nowadays. And you kind of see some great, should we say, destinations in terms of both artisan premium food shopping and also combining that with a restaurant as well. So really creating more of that experience around that. And I think Avoca is probably something like that in Ireland.
Yeah, certainly. It's a great story. The other thing is it's finding the distributors that work with them is key, because people again don't have the logistics to drop off at all those smaller stores. So you need to look at the distribution companies that are servicing these stores is the best avenue really for these people to explore.
And I think then if you come back to city centres, then yes, absolutely. Quite often, as you say, many of those with more of a shift towards kind of healthier lines, sometimes around organic as well, whether it be in Amsterdam, Berlin, or London, kind of, and Paris as well. To be fair, there's a whole host of different things going on in that space, and I always try and seek out some of those healthier focused operators, because they're doing now what will come into the mainstream in 2 to 3 years' time.
Certainly. So, okay, well, thank you very much for your time. But I just wanted to move in. I know you do the food safaris, and now's the opportunity. Then, if you want to do a quick flag up for these, I mean, what's planned next for the food safaris, or how can people become involved?
So, I guess I run a couple of different types of food safaris. One is around bespoke programs for individual clients. But actually also what I do is a program each year of, should we say, open safaris, where you just pay a fee for the day. You come along to a city, Dublin and London and Amsterdam are on my list right now. And then actually what you do at the start of the day, you get a briefing around, okay, this is the market. These are some of the trends within it. And these are the stories behind the operators we're going to see. So we'll share that in a 1 hour session at the start of the day. And then we'll go and visit some of the best concepts in that city. So we'll explore in particular that cross section of retail and food to go, but also going into food retail a little bit deeper, going into sometimes more food service side of things, where there are relevant learnings for that overall food to go sector. So the idea is, take a picture of where the market is now in a leading influential city, then with the view that actually you can see, how things are being done. Maybe you want to do something yourself similar to that in your home market, or actually maybe you want to understand how that trend will come through in terms of shaping the opportunity for you in the longer term. So lots of different types of people come along, but that focus on inspiration, innovation, and learning is very much at the heart of that. And that practical learning, I always find is, for me personally, it just goes so much deeper than just sitting in a classroom and having somebody talk at you for a couple of hours.
Maybe it's my commercial head. You have to recognize that this enthusiasm can also be translated into higher profit margins. So, ultimately,
and I think if there's one thing which is coming through increasingly right now is experience. So it's I suppose, if let's take a look at somewhere like London, for example, you can go in, you can get your lunch from Tesco on a meal deal for £3, and that's kind of your value option if you're working in the centre of London. Actually what you see is a growing number of operators doing some innovative things around experience, around different cuisines, and that, I suppose, you look at the ticket price of some of those, it can be up to £10. And that is all around that kind of experience, sometimes making, that kind of feel-good factor, delivering that, whether that's around health or not always around health, but sometimes it certainly is.
And again, it's indulgence of people also. It's a reward if they've had a hard day, whatever, they want to spoil themselves, so they'll go and buy something that they couldn't either make themselves, so they feel is a bit more indulgent because it's just a reward.
I think right now, when, should we say, businesses are encouraging people or having to work quite hard in some instances to get people back in the office, when people are going into the office, they kind of feel that having made the effort to go in, they deserve some kind of treat. Whether that's a healthier treat or a more indulgent one will often depend on the time of week and the individual. But certainly, kind of, I think that is an interesting opportunity for some of those people.
It's more economic to actually buy some of these pre-prepared meals than to have all these ingredients that are going out of date that they never use, when they're preparing it. So sometimes it can be down to economics where, it's cost effective.
For sure, there's an opportunity in that direct delivery. I think it's just that market as a whole has got some way to go. Just again, coming back to your point before, Harry, from that kind of profitability and logistics perspective, there's a lot of people trying to do a lot of things in there right now. There will be more shake-up in that space.
Well, there'll also be casualties. Is that what you're trying to suggest? There's going to be winners and losers, obviously, as the things evolve, because it's so volatile, I suppose. Gavin, thank you very much for your time this morning. It's been a pleasure to talk to you, and hopefully we'll call on you again to pick your brains on some other aspect of the food industry going forward. So again, thank you very much for your time.
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you. Today we have Julie Mills, who's established as a Shrewd Foodie and helps brands grow. She has 20 years experience in food and retail, and specifically in what we're interested in is your experience as a food buyer in Waitrose. You've also been a marketing director in various buying and category management roles for booths. And during your time, you've also been a commercial director and a managing director. So you've been involved in the food industry at a high level for a few years. So you're really the ideal person for us to pick your brains and see if you can help us plot our way forward. And food to go in this instance, but actually anything that's going to help small food businesses grow. So thank you very much for taking the time to have a conversation with us today. So
you're welcome.
So you've been involved in the food industry for a long time. Was it a sort of family thing, or did you just career that you decided to move into when you were leaving school or university?
No, so my career has been very interesting, and none of it actually intended. So I'm a farmer's daughter from Gloucestershire.
Very good.
And I read agricultural economics as a degree, and always thought I would go into some form of farming. And I was very lucky. My very first job that I applied for was as a buyer for Waitrose, and a consultant had sort of put me forward. And recommended that route, and I wasn't sure about working for, I called them the bad guys, the other side of the table.
You mean our side? You're talking about our side?
My parents would be terribly upset with me for going and working for the kind of supermarket world.
All right,
But somebody gave me some really good insight, actually, when I was applying for the job, and they said you can make a bigger difference for the food industry on the inside than you can fighting from the outside. So I definitely think that's been true.
Certainly. One of the modules we've been looking at recently is just the understanding the buyer and understanding the buyer's needs and understanding the issues and the constraints that they have to work within. So, you have some sympathy from ourselves. We're not all opposing, but, it is a difficult position.
Yeah, it is. And I think I had a very different perception of what buying was, especially when I started out. I thought literally buyers spent 95% of the time choosing products. I thought, what a lovely job. And actually, genuinely, it's like the other way around. I say to people often as a buyer, you spend 5% of your time doing the nice bit, choosing the lovely products, and actually 95% of the time choosing actually how to drive the category forward, just administratively managing things, and things go wrong all day, every day. People just don't realise that actually every time you interact with the buyer, every time you phone them, every time you ask a query, every time something goes wrong, they've got to pick up the pieces and manage it internally and communicate it. So yeah, it's a much misunderstood job, I would say.
It's one of the issues because of everybody's talking now about service levels and different things and supply chain issues. Some of the companies that I've been working with recently are talking about being able to secure contracts just being able to guarantee delivery, because they can't deliver the amount. So if you go to a larger supermarket chain and saying, okay, you have to be able to deliver X amount of product every week. And if you can't deliver that, it doesn't matter what price it is. It doesn't matter what the quality of the product. If it's non-existent, then that's the problem. So being able just to fulfill demand can be a great asset.
It's hugely important. And who knows why the different reasons can affect different categories, but I think buyers are ultimately, if you sort of think about it from the buyer's perspective, which I know is really hard to do when you're an individual manufacturer because you're only thinking about your world, but actually as a buyer you've got to deliver that category sales. That's your job. You're employed to deliver that. Whichever route you do that through, is your sort of creative challenge, and that can be a sort of a kind of a scientific project. Sometimes it's about sort of managing the numbers and thinking it through, and sometimes it's through your emotion and through your creativity and your craft. But actually ultimately you've got to deliver the sales. So you might list a product that you think is absolutely right, but if you can't deliver it, someone is still looking at you and saying, well, you can't just sit there and say, oh well, I'm really sorry, that really small supplier had a bit of a factory breakdown and something went wrong, or the delivery partner let them down. It's like, we don't care. We need the delivery of the sales. And our customer, at the end of the day, is stood in a shop wanting to buy something, and they can't buy something from empty shelves. So it's difficult.
I don't know if it's been lockdown or whatever it's caused, but there seems to be a growing appetite for greater diversity in some of the product ranges that we're looking at now. And you see that within, whether it's the food to go, and you don't. Before, I'm showing my age, years ago, food to go was a packet of sandwiches, and a chocolate bar, and that was your food to go. But now it's so much more sophisticated.
Yeah,
it really is. It has so much more to offer. Whether it's the breakfast bars, which are healthy options, or your lunchtime solutions, or even something to take home for an evening meal.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I did my first range review probably about 15 years ago now on the food to go category, and the biggest question we had is, should we introduce these meal deals that everyone else is doing or not? And it was a very simple category, and even things like wraps were quite new and quite fancy. We didn't know if they'd sort of stay. But I think people, their expectations these days, they're being exposed to so many different cuisines and styles of food. And I think people, so many people I know, and the sort of industry knowledge that I kind of pick up, and research partners tell me that having gone through lockdown, people are definitely thinking harder about what they eat for lunch, simply because they've actually enjoyed making their own lunches. So they've got that kind of ability perhaps that they didn't have before. And if they're, typically living and working from home still most of the time, and having the odd day where they go into the office, actually that's part of the experience. I'm going to go into the office. I might or might not want to do that, but actually I'm going to treat myself to a lovely lunch because I'm going to be in town. And it's that sort of, it's a real treat again, rather than that daily, I'm going to have the same thing every day. So therefore I think people are looking for variety and just a bit more willing to try something different.
There's also the increase. We have so many, single person homes, apartments. I know it's a growth area in Germany. I think that there's the single thing. It's a huge category over there. We have the one person households where it's actually economically beneficial to buy in some of these meal deals as opposed to stand and cook from scratch, because the ingredients is going to go off. You're not going to have all that ingredients in your cupboard, so you can just buy it and have it there, or you couldn't possibly afford to do it.
Yeah, and I'm reading a lot at the moment about people saying that just the physical price of gas and electricity means that people won't want to turn their ovens on. So people are doing more sort of batch cooking. And it's funny because it takes me back to my childhood. My mum was a farmer, and she cooked in a very sort of old-fashioned traditional way, and she just didn't have the time to stand in front of the oven every single day because she was busy out on the farm. So we cooked in a really interesting way, and we're sort of going back to some of those frugal ways of cooking a great big sort of meal on one day, and then actually changing some of the nature of the ingredients around it and serving it in a salad or something different over the sort of 2 or 3 days. And I do think people are looking to just reduce some of their sort of electricity prices, and very conscious that just turning an oven on for one person's meal is a huge expense.
It is.
Let's face it, 6 months ago, most people didn't think about that.
No.
So I'm turning the oven on, that's going to cost me some money.
You don't know what then next year will bring, and what other impacts of the cost, the rise of cost of living and stuff's going to have on it. But I mean, again, looking at it, one of the main drivers for it, whether it's being price sensitive, it does seem. I was in a food company last week, and they were doing sort of Asian food, and they were selling it at about £5 for a unit, and they're selling very well. And it's not, at £5, it's still some more, as a quick snack, that's probably on the more pricey side for people who are just grabbing something and going for out of a supermarket, that is. So as much, there may be a slight contradiction if it's good. If it's slightly indulgent, then we'll maybe spend a bit more.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I kind of take you back to something that happened, interestingly, probably sort of 10 years ago, at the start of the economic crisis. Whereas we noticed at Booze at the time, we noticed a really interesting pattern that actually booze sales grew during the economic crisis. And we were predicting right at the start that we were a slightly more upmarket supermarket, slightly more expensive. And we were sort of accepting that this is going to be a tough time ahead. And what we found is actually people traded out of restaurants and said, okay, I might not go out for that meal, but when I do have something, I'm going to treat myself. So interestingly, I think the market becomes more polarized. Those people, the sort of price perceptions of, I might not go out to a restaurant for lunch, but I'm going to treat myself for something. And actually £5 becomes a really acceptable lunch treat. And I think, people are changing. I'm reading quite a lot of stuff at the moment about perhaps the younger generation cutting out alcohol as much. which I'm sure is a brilliant thing for their own health and mental state, and society generally. But as a result, they're saying, well, actually, I'm not spending that money on alcohol, and we all know that's a big expense with any meal. So actually, there's just little compromises there that actually mean that actually you can put the money that you have got into a better quality version of something. And I think so many people these days, especially that sort of young age group, sort of, I think of my sort of my cousin who's 25, I always think she's that sort of target market of actually she reads the back of labels. If we were thinking about the food to go market, 20 years ago, how many people would turn over the pack of a sandwich and look at all the ingredients?
I mean, again, you're looking at the food to go. I mean, again, years it would have been a bottle of juice or whatever, a chocolate bar, but off we go now. We see the breakfast bars and we see the healthy bars. So, you mean, in your opinion, would you see that health is it a subcategory of it, or is it either or that we have? We'll indulge ourselves on Thursday and Friday, the weekend, but Monday through to Thursday or whatever, we'll eat the sort of, the porridge, the small porridge pots and things like that. So how much of it is health driven and how much of it is indulgent, or is it just that they're sitting almost comfortably together?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the wonderful thing about research, because it all tells us different answers depending on what questions we ask. So there's definitely a portion of the population that does that kind of Primark and Prada. I will, I'll save money all week and I'll spend it at the weekend, whether it's health or money. But I think there is increasingly a number of customers who are just living a different lifestyle. They're just saying, actually, I'm going to become more healthy, and I'm actually just going to do that every day of the week. And that's actually a bit more of a sustainable way of living. I'm not going to do this feast of famine. I'm not going to have no alcohol midweek and then absolutely lots at the weekend. I think people are just getting a bit more balanced and perhaps just a bit more sensible, dare I say, which I don't think is a bad thing, but it makes it very difficult for retailers to plan and think ahead. But what I would say is, no matter who we are, we all need a bit of treat. And I think lunchtime is one of those areas where it's especially for office workers, it can become I've had a bad day, something's gone wrong, I'll treat myself to lunch, because that is probably one of the few areas of the world that we can actually guarantee that we can take control over. So I do think there will always be that element of, I'm going to look forward to that little piece of cake from Pret or whatever it is.
So how do you think from a buyer's perspective or from a retailer, then how do you satisfy that need when you're looking at such a wide range? You have people's tastes are so diverse that you have on one side, the healthy option or the indulgent option, or just the new flavor, something that's just I just want something new. How do you? I mean, it's very difficult. How do you accommodate carrying all those lines?
Yeah, it is very difficult, and it has to come back to I guess that kind of emotion and science. It has to come back to constantly doing range reviews, looking at the tiers that you've got in the product categories and finding niches, and then finding products that can fill a number of different goals. So, for example, there's a brand that I work with called Two Farmers Crisps. They're, absolutely brilliant what they do, produce a very, very high quality crisp, but their product is also in plastic-free packaging, and then the first brand out there to be in plastic-free packaging. So it's a really good example for me of a brand that is sort of indulgent and premium, and it's a bit of a treat, and it's probably one of the most expensive crisps that you can buy, but actually it's got that plastic free, so it's got that sort of little bit of conscience in there. So I think the more that you can sort of have products that overlap, that meet two different customer needs, actually the tighter that you can make your ranges. And I think it's that bit that's the real craft of the buyer skill. And there's no, every single buyer could approach a different category, and we could all come up with 100 different versions of it, and there's no right or wrong answer. It's just constantly tweaking it to get it right.
In your time as a buyer, how often would a company come to you and say, "What is your need? What do you need me to make?" Did that ever happen? Literally
never, apart from own label suppliers, and that's where you've got a very different relationship. But no, it's shocking, and I think it's really interesting that I advise a lot of my clients to just really get to know the buyer and get to know them in a situation where they can genuinely ask the question of, well, what's going on in the category? What's going on that you can't overcome, or what are your biggest challenges? You might not be able to fix them, but you bear them in mind. And I always think that solving customers' problems, whether you're a food manufacturer thinking about the consumer, or whether you're a buyer, or whether you're a food manufacturer thinking about a buyer as a customer relationship, it's like, if you've got a problem to solve, great, if I can fix that. So I've got a brand recently who I know that they've created a AHFES compliant product. And it's just got immediate listings into some really, large chains.
What motivated them to? So what motivated them to do that? Was it some piece of
a very simple
information?
conversation where we said, have you heard of AHFES? Your products are largely made of sort of sugary and chocolatey things. You might need to be aware of this. And they literally just went off and went, don't know anything about it, never heard of it. What are you talking about? We gave them some documentation that sort of explained the rules and regulations, and they just massive wake up call, and suddenly went, right, well, we can produce a compliant product, and as a result got listings. But it's that often so many food manufacturers are they're very busy, and this isn't meant to sound as a criticism. They're running their business, they've got people to employ, they've got a number of things they've got to get through in the day just to keep going. So actually stepping out of your own problems to go and get more problems from someone else is often not necessarily what anybody wants to do, but actually they're the ones that, if you can understand what's going on in your customers' world, actually they're the ones that have got that kind of long-term sustainable growth. So yeah, interesting times at the moment.
I've had it for many years in sales, and one of the key things about that is that when you're selling, you're not actually selling a product, you're selling a solution to somebody's problem. So the first thing you would imagine would be, you go and speak to them and say, what's your problems? How can I solve your problems? And work back. But it works in the reverse. Somebody is a recipe that was passed down through the generations on a product, and we're going to then make that and try and sell it, as opposed to, it's like almost reverse engineering is the best way I could put it. So,
absolutely. I remember I think it was my first month at Waitrose, I sat next to a very, very competent buyer, and I used to hear her answer the phone. She had a dedicated supply chain, so it was very unlikely that she was going to take on a new supplier. And she had this brilliant way of answering the phone. So she'd answer the phone. So are you a new potential supplier? Okay, that's lovely, brilliant. Tell me a little bit about yourself. And then very quickly she'd say, so do you understand the Waitrose sourcing policy? And she'd wait for the response, and the response would come, and clearly the response was, oh yeah, we think we know it and we're going to tell you what it is, but they wouldn't actually have done any research whatsoever. And so she'd say, so actually let me just tell you what the Waitrose sourcing policy is. And it was at the point in time about sort of free range chicken and secured supply. And so if you knew that, you wouldn't actually be coming to me to get a supply base, because you're trying to sell some chicken that is not produced in the UK, for example. And she had this really lovely way of articulating it, but also making them realise that they hadn't really done their homework in a very sort of professional but very human way. Yeah. And I really liked it, because it made me think she wasn't just saying to people, no, I'm not going to list you, because it was that way of sort of helping them understand that actually, if you want a listing, these are the things that you need to do, and this is why. And I think there's so little time for us to interact with buyers these days. It's really hard to kind of build that relationship. But the more you can really get under the skin of who they're trying to serve. So
this is thank you very much for your time, Julie. It's been wonderful to talk to you. It's very insightful in some of the things to get an honest. Sometimes you can speak a bit more frankly about the issues that buyers may have, and to advise small companies how best to approach and to deal with them. So again, thank you very much, and hopefully we can call on you again some other related topic.
Definitely, it would be really interesting to talk to you. Thank you.
Again. So you think you test these, how they'll be reheated in microwave mostly?
Yeah.
Mostly the microwave?
Yeah, because based on our research, people these days, they want something healthy, but something convenience as well. Anything that, yes, some of them still prefer oven, or they don't have microwave, but majority, they just want something that 3-4 minutes, heating up, have it.
So it's convenience or health that was the motivating. So do you think that people are buying this because it's a healthy product or because it's a convenient product?
I think for
do you get feedback?
Yes, you get a feedback, because convenience is definitely, because majorities of the customers this day is like, our customers will be all the young one with kids. It's because I don't know why, what we attract actually like young families with kids, or all the young people that go to work, or the families that is so like really busy, like Monday through Friday, and just
they don't. I mean, it's to say that this is better than going down to the local hot food bar or going to McDonald's and stuff like that, or ordering
like
Domino's pizza
option as well. And convenience, it means probably some of them know by the time they're cooking curries and getting broccolis and it's probably
it doesn't know it is. It's probably cheaper
Yeah.
buy that. If you were living in your own, if there's only two of you, whatever, and you're not making a bigger
Yes,
pot.
exactly.
Some of these ingredients, you know,
So
what's-
I think for both of them, and they always, finally, they always get attracted with that broccoli
Yeah.
and that freshness in it, because I think that makes the product so unique compared to the other ready meals.
Yeah.
Well, not every ready meals, but most of the ready meals in here is, you know, it's more
I've
of
seen
just
them. I've seen them. So you said there's
just
the potato and
probably
stuff, you know,
potatoes, yeah,
roast
or
beef.
even just curry, but
or-
then the chicken
Yeah.
is just all over sauce.
Yeah.
So it's,
Yeah.
I think it's something different for them, and also a flavor as well.
The flavor would want to
A flavor probably is the big thing that.
So when you started off just with an idea, just working from home, and this then just became more popular.
Yeah.
And you just became more professional.
And it's just my nature never stops.
No,
I
you
never
have to do
stop working.
something.
I have to do something. And then it was kind of, for me, even for myself, I couldn't find ready meals or
Yeah.
anything or Asian meals that I like basically put it on.
Yeah.
There's only like, there's a Chinese, and I don't know why people in here, because I'm Chinese Indonesian as well, people always associate Chinese with a cheat meal.
All right. Okay.
So it's kind of
Yeah.
a cheat meal when
Yeah.
we go into the just like, oh, that's my cheat meal.
Alright.
But then I was thinking like, it's not a cheat meal. And
No.
why you like, or
Yeah.
like whenever I was home or in Australia, but it's probably it's most the healthiest food in the world.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
Asian food, because
Yeah.
we're using herbs, we're
Yeah.
using like a really low calories, and there's nutrients, and kind of like using ginger, garlic, and everything. So
It was probably the gravies and stuff that they probably
Yeah.
associated with the,
So-
or the several cans of beer that they take
so,
with it.
yeah, whenever I was just like a bit intrigued of the habit over here, and it's like, you know what, and then I couldn't find a nice one around here. I have to go to Belfast, so
Right.
that's not really convenient
No,
as well.
certainly not.
And it's just one time, actually the barber's just across our house. There's
Yeah.
actually Chris' cousin.
Mhm.
They always come around and always cook. I always have
Very
this
good.
Friday cooking,
Cook-
and
oh, right.
everybody come together, and then just cook for it. And then they're like, and then I have nothing to do whenever we take the, what you call it, the maternity leave.
Yeah,
So it's
maternity,
like,
yeah.
why don't you make us some lunches and then bring it to the shop
Right.
whenever you're cooking? So and I'll get you,
Mhm.
and then I'll get a pay for it. So it's like, it's okay. Well, I'm just gonna cook anyway.
Wow.
So and then it was that time social media was just
Oh,
starting.
yeah.
So they put it on their Facebook and then
Yeah.
their Instagram. All of a sudden have these like 40 messages.
Right.
Where do you sell it? What do you
Yeah.
sell it? What is your meal plan? And so it was kind of like, okay. So it's like,
So social media was a key point in the
it's a
growth of the
key
company.
point in the growth of
Was
the
it
company.
because we're coming from offering this for other small companies? They're
Yes.
trying to find it. So social media played a significant step.
Yes.
Change. You know,
It
significant.
does actually,
Yeah.
because it's a word of mouth. It's a social media.
Social media
as
word of mouth.
Facebook,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
Facebook and Instagram, and all of a sudden, like people just been inquiring. So I see there's a market gap in there. Like, okay, so they want something convenience, but they really like the idea of healthy Asian food,
Okay.
which they can get it in
Yeah.
here. So, and I'm like, you know what, I'll try to make a business. So set up my Facebook. And then try to advertise, not even advertising, just put something on.
yeah,
Like,
just- I know what you mean.
like, you know, I'm cooking this on
It's not,
Friday.
it's not a marketing campaign. You
No, just put in
just put
something.
information-
And I was like,
information.
is anybody interested? So, and then it was just kind of people adding up, up, and then just basic customer base, and all of a sudden it will become a regular Friday. Then all of a sudden, I don't know how all the local shops around the area. It's like,
They can't.
they want to stock. You want to stock your meals in me. So I was kind of like,
Wow.
all right, okay. So that would be a good thing as well. And but I have a little bit of expertise, but not on the packaging
Yeah, I
stuff. So
understand.
kind of quite new.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what, this is something that I could do. I think I can see the potential,
Yeah.
especially that time probably only have 2 or 3 competitors
Yeah.
based on the market research. So
Yeah.
this could be something that I could do.
Yeah.
So I went to Southern Regional College
Oh yeah.
and then go to their business innovation.
Mhm.
Because we try to see
Yeah.
what in a council can
Yeah,
offer just
yeah,
to help a small business.
There's that Heartland, ABC Heartland as well.
ABC Heartlands,
Yeah.
yeah. So on there, and they get me in conversation with one of the food technologists. So from there, and then like they offer, okay, there's the business support, there's the the 5,000 grants for support as well. So I was kind of trying to
using those things as innovation vouchers, I think we call them.
Yeah, so getting a bit more knowledge about it, and then I read a lot of books about food developments or trying to engage on the webinar as well, or anything that provides with the councils, and then because it was a good knowledge. Then I get a container the size of this room at the side of the house, but then fit it as a cabin kitchen, fitting as a cabin kitchen. Get the inspector. So it's gonna be more proper and start stocking one shop and then two shops. So and it was just kind of the business. It was just going, and then but it was for me is to developing step by step, and get a bit feedback from the customers, get a bit feedback from the retailers as well. What is the actually market wants, or for example, even like the shelf line or Shera, they actually a good relation with your stockists.
Certainly. Do you have salespeople on the ground? I see you have a van there. So is that done by van sales, or is that done tele sales, or?
It's more like telesales.
Telesales, yes. So they're just delivery people. They don't go in and there's no report. They just
So it'll be Chris. So Chris, my husband, so he's the one that doing the pitchings and going into the shops and on that side. Well, I did that for 17 years. So I understand. I feel his pain, but I understand that. But it's good to have someone there who's getting that feedback, understand merchandising the product, making sure it's rotated and everything is in a good position. Even me, sometimes I still go to the shops and just to say hello and how's the products going.
It makes difference. Do you find scaling up from what you've been cooking in small batches, and all of a sudden now you're cooking obviously bigger batches?
Yes.
How do you find that changes then the profile? Have you been able to maintain?
It is my biggest challenge because there's so many trial and errors. Because obviously it's definitely whenever before you only have needs a small cup, and then now we try so many different things. We have a bread pan, we have a bit more stock pot, and but then again we'll find out what is more efficient and what is actually affecting the flavor. So there's a lot of trial and error.
All the cooking, so you've no other sort of food scientists brought in from school to help you for university? You do all this yourself?
I do it all myself because I was thinking, because I was trying to tumble through it. I work with them a bit, and and I think, do you know what? Because I think it's the most important is actually my own palate, my taste.
Trust it.
And because even I work with we have now 4 chefs on site. Even then, and they're all like some of Portuguese or some like locals, and have different palates. So we always discuss like whenever doing a product development, there'll be. And it will come into my recipes again. So I think it's people still like that taste of whatever's been brought in.
So when you're launching products, how often would you new product development? Would you try and introduce something seasonally, or do you bring anything?
At the moment, because we have the 7 core of we call it signature range. So that has been developed from the start.
Okay. And that a lot of businesses will be the same.
And then I'm trying to do even 1 or 2 new ones seasonally, just to get a bit of spark, or if I can see.
Keep interest, just basically.
Keep interested, or I can see, okay, then there's the next market trend is about, for example, it's just easiest type green chicken curry. So okay, maybe we'll try to make something that could fit into that market, but then also something that maybe could be a core range and later.
You see the breakfast range is a big growth area where people now will take things, and they're just on the move, and you'll just take it into the office, or they just take it for home for a smaller snack. So it is a growth.
It is
the morning meal. A lot of them will divide the day up into sort of obviously morning, afternoon snack, and sort of an evening meal, and this will fall into. This could really be either lunch or an evening meal.
This could be lunch or evening meal.
Both.
And also actually fit into, we call it takeaway. It's funny, they're fried away food. So instead of they're getting Chinese, they're gonna say I'm getting Karri Kitchen.
Okay.
So it's kind of like trying. I was actually just fit itself into like a different sector.
And it's just creating a new niche, basically.
Yeah, you're creating a new niche.
So changing the subject a little bit, how competitive do you see this market? How competitive do you see other people coming in?
It is quite competitive, especially
Have you noticed that
from last year.
Now, once people see how successful you are, that you're going to encourage
a lot of people's like doing it, and more people's doing it again. We can see a lot of different brands now. I think it's actually last year was all of a sudden it was this ready meal was kind of booming. But then again.
No, I think the ready meals is here to stay. You know, it will evolve and change. You know, it's just maintaining your position, your shelf space.
That is the challenge. It was quite a challenge.
It is really a challenge, yeah.
But I think it's because we only specialize on a Southeast Asian base meal, so all the rest, and anything will be a Southeast Asian. That was make it a bit distinctive into other ready meal.
Do you do much more on your social media, as in talk about? Do you have like a kitchen in here, and you were sitting talking about making up the meals and what you put the flavors in?
We have a little bit there.
You've done a bit. I'm no expert, but I'm reading that that's one of the ways to keep. It's just you're not trying to sell them anything. You just keep them engaged.
No, it's get engaged to give them actually information. Like I will see, like we're quite active on our Instagram and Facebook. So we're always telling a story, the reason behind. Because there's also some of this meal there's a reason behind it, like the mango chicken curry. That was kind of like the first curries that whenever I started making Karri Kitchen, and it's become a staple, and everybody that is the best selling one. But then we always like telling story. It's based on Indonesian yellow curry. So that is what is the idea coming from, and the mangoes, because my mother-in-law one time was like, you wanted something fresh and summery or curry.
Sometimes to give that lift.
So and I'm just telling a little bit of story behind it, or even like the batik. I call it there's the pattern in there. So the bottom it's called batik pattern. So it's Indonesian. It's like a material that your parents give you whenever you were born, and it have like a really symbolized kind of thing. But then it's that's like the one that my dad gave it to me whenever I was a baby, and it was always like it's always carrying through, and it's symbolized. It could be like a wave. It's like a wave symbol, and there's a good really philosophy behind it, and it becomes actually
that's a great story. It's a great story to be telling people. People are very interested in it. It makes them more.
We put a bit of story on Instagram or Facebook, and it gets the people a little bit more curiosity. People loved it because. It is because it's not just a meal. For me, it's just not creating meals.
No, but you're not a faceless sort of corporate, because what you'll find in this, and people seeing it, all of a sudden Nestle or some of these people will be producing something like this, mass produced and full of preservatives and last for 3 or 4 weeks and all these things, and you can really taste it, but you have a face to go with this. It's more human. It's not a big corporation.
And that is the selling point as well, because it's I think it's a local kind of a habit. People love buying local, and people think they see made in Northern Ireland.
But it's authentic. They like to see authenticity. They don't like to think of a large company. Okay, maybe they'll take it because it's got a good price.
Good price.
It's okay. We'll take the price. But realistically, there's something about the authenticity that people are attracted to and will come to.
That engagement, like a trusted and confidence of the meals as well. So I think that's another selling point.
It is.
It's a hard challenge, to maintain that.
It is, but
without taking it over.
But also, as you go bigger. I mean, use only one of you. There's only 2 or 3 of you of the directors and stuff. They can only concentrate on certain things. You can't. As the business gets that bigger, that you just do not have the time, and it's happening.
People around here is the most friendly in the world, probably.
You've been very friendly to me, so I'm not keeping any more of your time.